obviously, so you've pulled, is 850 your best, or?
850, yeah.
So, yeah, so I mean, and the sumo is very technical.
Very technical. Kind of like the squat, your setup is going to differ, from person to person. I'll show you mine. I'll go through my checklist, and you guys can tweak as needed. Like I said, never said that I'm the best puller in the world or anything like that, but this is just gotten to what's working for me now. Okay, so sumo-wise, you shouldn't have your feet against the bar. I like to be around 2 inches behind. So again, from squatting wide, it makes sense to pull wide, right? Before I even do anything, I'll set my feet, and then similar to squatting, I will screw my feet out and rotate my knees out, right? Obviously, I think I'm a little bit wider when I pull sumo, only because it's what works for me. But you can pull, modified sumo where you're here. I know some people who pull all the way out. I'm gonna fall like that, right? That doesn't work for me. So I need to be, personally, I make sure that the inside of my calf lines up with the knurling, right? Any deadlift bar is gonna have these knurlings out here, so that's kind of like my gauge here, right? Everything's screwed out, feet are rotated out, right? Toes are at a 45 degree, right? I'm not gonna pull like this, because look at my knees, that's absolutely ridiculous looking, right? So we're here, but I'm also not all the way out like that, right? Because think about it, any kind of gravity, right? If I have no support on the outsides of my feet, what's gonna happen? If I stand up like this, what's gonna happen? I'm gonna fall forward, right? So you wanna make sure that you're out, that your toes are out, but not completely falling in, like that, okay? So my setup here, right? Screw everything out, rotate it out, right? I'm also flexing my quads, right? Some people don't do that, right? Because I want to make sure that my hips and my quads and my glutes are flexed before I do anything else. So everything's spread, everything's rotated out, everything's flexed. Me personally, I tore this finger, so this would technically be my overhand, but because of this injury, I have to switch, right? Your overhand should be your more dominant hand. Doesn't work for everyone, everyone's not like that, but that's just how I normally would pull. If I pull conventional, I pull like this. But because this finger doesn't bend, like that, I have to pull this way. So it's basically a reverse inverted grip, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. So what I do is, I'm here at the top, right? Quads are flexed, glutes are flexed. Lats are, again, rotated or turned down, right? Lats are in, core's braced. We're not doing this, right? I'm not arching my back this way, right? Everything's down, compressed. My setup is I will take a breath at the top. I'll arch my hips back slightly, but again, it's not this, it's back together as a whole piece. I'll grab the bar, falling, grab the bar here. One thing that a lot of people don't do is they don't get their lats involved here, so I'll pull the bar into me, and we're here. Okay, it's hard to see without enough weight on it, but pulling the slack out of a deadlift is the most important thing you can do, because if you don't, your first movement is pulling the slack out. So this sound on the deadlift bar is the slack, right? So if you pull the slack out correctly, you should hear that. If you don't, then your first movement when you start your lift is to pull that slack out. So what happens when you pull and the bar doesn't move? Where do your hips go? Hips shoot up. So that's why a lot of sumo pullers miss off the floor, because their hips shoot and the bar hasn't moved. Right? So you want to make sure that that slacks out here, so that your first movement is up. And your hips, when your hips come, the bar is coming with it.
think that's pretty good. I'm gonna show you guys a drill also for the pulling the slack out part. Obviously, you're gonna have a lot more. Like you gotta pull yourself down a lot more aggressively in a suit.
Especially if you have a suit on. That's why I've more recently been just pulling in briefs because, and this is why I said in the beginning, I used to pull in a looser suit because if you really jack your straps down and you have really tight gear, you may not even be able to get to the bar.
Yeah.
Let alone be able to get your chest vertical, right? You want to make sure that you're not pulling in this position because now you're not going anywhere, and then you're definitely going to stiff leg it, right? So if your suit is too tight, not only are you not going to be able to rotate out because you're already wide, your suit's going to pull you in, but then your straps are going to bring you forward. So you're going to try and pull like this, like it's just ugly, it's not going anywhere. So I pull looser gear or just briefs so that I'm still able to mimic the same technique in gear and not in gear. So my pull looks exactly the same whether or not I have gear on and when I'm raw.
All right, cool. So then let's go over a conventional technique.
So conventional in gear is really hard. Really hard. There's a lot of stuff here that makes getting down to the bar harder. But whether or not you're a conventional or sumo puller, your conventional technique isn't going to change. What's going to change is how you get to the bar, how you approach the bar in your gear. So if you're a conventional puller, again, feet gonna vary however you feel comfortable. Couple trains of thought, hips real low, kind of doing this, or hips kind of here. That's all gonna be based upon how you pull. My conventional pull, I'm a little more bent over as opposed to being more like butt down. If I pull conventional, I'll be here, right? But I'll slacks still out, lats are still down, core still braced, and it's just here, right? Nothing's gonna change. My conventional pull raw to my conventional pull geared. The only thing that's gonna be challenging is actually getting to the bar. So I know what some people do is they will go with one hand first, right? I've seen people, they'll get here, they'll sit, and then they'll go with their overhand or underhand. So they'll come here, and then they'll get here, and then they'll go. It's just, there's a lot of material, and there's a lot of tension to pull conventional with your gear.
So when people are setting their grip, I know sometimes if it is really a tight suit, and I know maybe the answer is just maybe go a little looser, they're kind of pulling themselves down with one hand, and sometimes the bar can kind of helicopter a little bit.
It can. I've seen that happen a lot.
So do you have any tips for just the time? Is it like a timing thing?
So for me, when I'll do sumo and then go conventional, but I grab the bar and I'm trying to lift the bar off the ground with my underhand.
So you're trying to keep tension on that.
I'm trying to keep tension and trying to keep that slack out the whole time. So when I grab the bar here, I'm trying to do that until I grab it with this. Then we're even, and then I go. So that slack and that tension should be in that one hand the entire time. You shouldn't grab the slack out and then let it go to grab it with your other hand, right? So if you were to put 600 on the bar, you could see this. You could see the actual bow of the slack that I'm talking about. It's a lot easier. Actually, if you stand on one side.
Yeah, let's Don,
just hold that side of the bar.
Yeah, just hold this side down. Hold both sides.
Just hold both sides. You got it? So the slack is that. See how the bar's already bowed? So that tension is what you need to cause, what you need to create before you start your pull. That tension is what's going to allow you to keep your hips loaded and locked, your lats tight, and your hips from shooting up before you start your pull. Me, I'm only taking one breath, so I'll set my feet, and I take my breath at the top, only because I feel, and this is just me personally, but I don't feel like I can grab the bar and take a breath. I feel like I don't get the same tightness and the same brace as I do down here than I do up here. So I'm here, like everything's flexed, lats are tight. I'll take my breath, belly out, hinge and open, grab and go.
Cool.
Just because like I said, some people set up differently. Some people will kind of start here, and I'm sure you've seen people start here and then kind of take their breath and then go into it. But I feel like that you're never going to get the same tightness, and you're never going to load your hips the same as up here, grabbing and going, than starting with your hips high and then trying to bring your hips underneath. I never was able to feel the same.
So just sometimes like when you kind of if you're having trouble with keeping the lats engaged, I kind of set up a band here, put a weight or whatever, and just Chris can have to pull it close. Yeah, let's do that again. And again, so if he does, if he's not keeping tension, the bar is he's
Like that.
So this is just a really good drill you could do with light weights. You just do with an empty bar, but it's going to help teach you to keep
And if you're not tight, then you're going to get here.
way forward.
Way forward.
Not going to do anything.
Yeah, so you want to make sure that you're here, up, and pulling the bar into you. Your angle, if you were looking from the side, isn't straight up when you pull anything really, but especially sumo, it's a diagonal, right? It's an angle up and into you, right? So as you're coming this way, right? If you were just keeping on this trajectory, you would be out here, right? So the bar needs to actually come up and in, because you're falling back, you're pulling backwards, and that's how you're gonna lock out.